Hi class, my name is Lily Oliva, and today I will be talking about liability issues in disasters. I would like to first start off by describing exactly what the word liability means and how liability issues are considered. Liability is when one acts or fails to act unreasonably, and that act or failure to act is the legal cause of an injury to a person or property. Because emergency management is rooted in taking proactive steps to avoid bad choices, it is critical that the decisions made by emergency management officials follow proper procedures and guidelines. However, not every bad choice can be prevented, and these decisions are oftentimes difficult to make. As a result, liability issues can occur and are considered the great unplanned for hazard by emergency management. When discussing liability issues in a disaster, it is important to understand the meaning of negligence as well as its elements that result in liability. The basic principle of negligence is that every person has a general obligation to act in a reasonable manner at all times, considering the circumstances. In the emergency management context, negligence usually arises from the failure to perform or unreasonably bad performance of specific governmental duties. There are four main elements of negligence that result in liability, such as duty, breach of duty, legal causation, and personal injury or property damage. Now that you all are aware of what liability means and how it is an outcome of negligence, let's discuss some of the sources and activities that may give rise to liability. The unit of government may incur liability from failure to properly train or supervise emergency management workers. Other frequent sources of liability include failure to perform the duties that are generally accepted as being part of emergency management's responsibilities. Types of activities that may generate liability vary. They include failure to adhere to a plan, executive level decision making, which for example would be poor choices, poor planning, or bad emergency response, or an incident commander's lack of wisdom. Another frequent cause of liability is the failure to comply with a legal duty, such as the OSHA law, or the Occupational Safety and Health Administration law. In addition, an unnecessary declaration of an emergency may also be the source of liability, or a delay declaration if the delay resulted in property damage, personal injury, or death. Required exercise compliance requirements for local emergency management are demanded by the EPCRA in order to assure that they satisfy the established criteria of both the SERC and SEMA. Failure to apply lessons learned from exercises in form of revisions to the EOP, procedures, facilities, equipment, and training may result in liability if the uncorrected deficiencies result in property damage or personal injury in a subsequent actual incident. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, can anyone be safe from liability? And the answer is yes. Units of government enjoy immunity, or protection from legal liability, for many of their activities. This immunity is not, however, unlimited. Disaster response statutes and common law provide customary defenses and immunities for protection of emergency responders who are working in the capacity of a governmental employee. In emergency management, volunteers are a vital resource and, when properly managed, can prove to be a key element in the successful response to an emergency situation. However, a number of legal issues may arise in connection with the utilization of volunteer resources. With incorporating volunteers, the most important step that can be taken to prevent liability is properly integrating them into the emergency response organization. As for emergent volunteers, these people are frequently not affiliated with the groups with which the unit of government has existing mutual aid agreements, and they may or may not be trained responders. If located to a distant staging area, these people can be trained and their capabilities can be assessed, and their proper role, if any, can be assigned. In the event that they are found to be trained responders with the needed skills, a record of the assessment must be made, and they can then be officially rostered as approved responders. Taking these steps will protect the emergency response organization from liability, as it shows that they are taking reasonable steps to find out the competencies of the volunteers. The Volunteer Protection Act of 1997 preempts state laws providing higher levels of liability for volunteers than gross negligence. However, the VPA does not exempt volunteers from liability for any harm caused while driving a motor vehicle. To conclude, liability issues and challenges arise in a variety of situations during and after a natural disaster. There are four main elements of negligence that result in liability, and although units of government receive immunity from liability, that immunity is not absolute. There are important steps that are necessary in order to prevent volunteers from liability, and the VPA provides protection to volunteers from liability. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed.